What's up, everybody? Another edition of The Dumbest Timeline. And once again, as we venture into the world of The Dumbest Timeline, take a moment to breathe and relax because it can potentially get better. Much like our conversation today with our guest, Chelsea. Chelsea, can you please tell us what is our crazy subject today on The Dumbest Timeline?
So today we're going to be talking about yoga in the Western world.
Yes, I love it
Uh,
already.
yeah, so something I just recently fell upon is Christian yoga. There's like a ton of yoga, by the way. There's like wine yoga, there's goat yoga, there's
Yes.
dog yoga, there's like weed and yoga. So I was like, okay, Christian yoga, what does that even entail? And got lost into this vortex on like TikTok, just like looking up, or not even needing to look up. TikTok just knows exactly what you're like
Right.
interested in all of a sudden.
It just starts to feed you.
Yeah. And yeah, just a lot of white Christians talking about their demonic experiences.
So when we were talking yesterday, we had a little pre-conversation about this. You had mentioned that there was someone who said while they were doing yoga, they started to feel the spirits, the evil spirits, because it was causing their bodies to shake. And all I remember, and I think I said to you, they do realize they were probably shaking because they just don't have a strong enough core for whatever whatever position, sun salutation, whatever move they're trying to do. What's the warrior pose? None like it. As someone who did yoga when he was a kid with his dad, who learned those moves, and even as a child, I was shaking because I was just like, "Why am I standing like this for so long?" You kind of get a sense of like, first of all, practice makes perfect. There's like the connection. My dad always talked to me about the spirituality within yoga. You know,
Mm,
my father and my mother are Christian, but my father always understood that yoga and the spirituality and the connection are important, and
mm,
he would always try and convey that to me as a child. And, I remember one time my dad and I talking about, we were explaining to my partner how to center yourself and how to feel grounded. And you can like feel the energy when you really ground yourself.
mm.
And then I did it, and my dad did it. And my partner was just like, I don't understand what you're doing. And we're like, and it was just kind of this weird moment of like, yeah, I guess I did this with my dad so much as a kid that I understood the sense of the energy as I ground myself in a space. And then
Mm.
you mentioned Christian yoga to me, and the hilarity and the insanity of these people just came out of left field.
Yeah. I love thank you for sharing that. I love that, you did that with your dad.
Yeah.
Um, and, I grew up Christian and my mom still did yoga. Um, of course, I think it was, like, passed down, but she
Mhm,
still didn't have much context outside of the Western um, concept of it because she came here when she was pretty young.
mhm,
So even if it was something that we practiced back in Trinidad, it wasn't called yoga either,
mhm.
because yoga is the philosophy. Yoga is not something you do. Yoga is something you live. So you'd never hear like my great grandma being like, "Let's go do yoga."
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Never made sense. So it was like, let's go pray or let's go practice or let's go
Mhm.
meditate or sadhana. Sadhana is like your practice, which can include the yogic positions, asana.
Oh,
So,
that's so heavy to real like, when you start to break down, like, pray, meditate, practice, and those are all parts of yoga, and
mhm,
that like, what Western society has adapted to mean yoga is a bunch of people, maybe with a mat and sometimes throwing goats in, and you're just like, "What is happening?"
what is happening?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's exactly that. Yoga is like sequencing, right?
Mhm,
It's rituals in your life, and it's like all day long. So even in interactions, you can practice yoga. You can practice ahimsa, which is like no violence. So
mm,
you have getting into a really heated conversation, you can like withdraw from that, and that's yoga.
mm.
Um, so what I'm seeing online recently is like this fascination with something called kundalini well, they're calling it Kundalini yoga.
Uh,
Kundalini is like a type of energy. We've all got it. It's like it's usually described as like this sort of serpent sort of energy. It's got like a serpentine sort of um, uh, like
Flow, like
yeah, like flow and also visual, you know.
okay.
Um, and so yeah, there's like these Christian people who are like, I wanted to try to get the Kundalini position. I don't even know how they
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
are trying to access this. I don't even know what
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
is, but
What's the backstory to you doing this? Where did this
right?
come
Like, I'm
from?
like, where did you even get this from? But then they're sharing, yeah, their experiences of like demon just like passing through them. And so what's really interesting is, you know, what you mentioned is your father understanding the spirituality of it.
Mhm.
Um, and you cannot you can't remove one from the other. Like yoga
Yeah.
is a spiritual practice.
Mhm.
So Christians who are getting into it, you're going to feel energy run through you, especially if you're trying to tap into some like serpent energy.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not there on in my practice, and like I'm like from this lineage, you
yeah.
know. Um, and like that's just another thing, the audacity, right? The audacity to do it, to teach it, to tell
Right.
others about it, like
I think and to try and also break it down in a TikTok, which I feel is the epitome of, "Oh, here's 15 seconds of me trying to convey to you this really complex idea, of something that I'm learning and I don't necessarily fully comprehend,
mhm,
and trying to convey all of that to you in this small snippet so that you can like and subscribe." And it's like,
right.
"Yo, can we
But
please."
they're not even trying to, like, describe, you know, what their experience was
Mm.
so that you can learn something. They're just trying to be like, "Oh my god, don't do it. You're gonna shake, and the demon just comes out of you. This shit is crazy. I started sweating, guys. I'm sweating." Yeah, you're sweating.
Yeah, what do you
You're, like, trying to hold your body in a certain position for, like some of it is just wild. But
You're not
sometimes
Hillary
I also
Banks, you
think
sweat.
exactly. But sometimes I also think, like, you're playing with fire.
Mm,
I'm not going and testing out, like, Yoruba traditions and then
yeah,
coming online and being like, "So I took some calories and, like, decided to show" like, you know,
right.
decided to
Yeah,
test my fate, and I would know better. I
yeah,
would know better.
yeah,
I would know, like, that's not my magic, and if that magic calls me, I'm gonna do that discreetly, and I'm gonna be led by, like, the grounded practitioners.
right.
I also don't understand why they're not looking for that guidance, why they think it's okay, and I guess what I'm learning is that because in the Western world, we've managed to separate spirituality so much
Mm,
that there's not that consciousness
yeah,
or even that fear, right? There's no it's just yoga. You
yeah,
can just get
yeah,
into positions and just do it.
yeah.
And something I'm recently understanding, so I'm doing my yoga teacher training at the moment,
Oh, cool.
um, and it's not like one of these like intense weekends, 60
Yeah,
hour
yeah.
training. It's
Here's
like
your
6 months
certificate.
long. You know,
Yeah,
I've got a
yeah,
mentor, I've got a teacher, we've got multiple cohorts to like discuss things.
yeah.
And
Like, proper
lost
teaching
my
too, like but even just in what you're saying, it's the idea that there's more to it than just the movements, and there's and
exactly.
it's funny enough, I feel like you tapped into something really interesting. Western culture is so capitalistic that teaching yoga and doing those classes, they wanna do it with as many people as possible.
Mhm.
So those, like, intense, 8-hour 16-hour weekends where you do it 8 hours for 2 days is done like that so you can have multiple classes of people and then just hand out certificates and be like, "Yeah, you're certified for this thing that is
Exactly.
well grounded and rooted in years," and like you were saying, lineage and ancestry
Yeah.
and understanding and teachings through
Okay. Let me
family.
share this
Yeah.
dumbest timeline.
Yeah, yeah.
Just think about this. I like this just came to me. I was like, Yoga Alliance. So Yoga Alliance is an organization that basically like like, you know, tells the whole world you are eligible to teach yoga. you are certified.
What? Makes
Yoga Alliance is from the Western world.
Of course. Of course.
And to teach it in yoga studios, to get paid, to be recognized, to do workshops, to be like a yoga leader,
Yeah.
you need to be Yoga Alliance certified.
Oh, wow.
And like to me, that's just wild. It doesn't matter where you're coming from in the world.
Right.
There are Yoga Alliance programs. So even in India, there
Oh,
are Yoga Alliance programs. At the end of it, you will be Yoga Alliance certified. There are amazing programs that are not certified, but
right.
then that means you're not really gonna be able to make money
Right. Right.
or even be recognized, right? A lot of the time.
So they've established that oh my god. So they've
Wild.
co-opted the, understanding of at least the base movement because again, what you're describing and something that you reminded me of, they've co-opted the practice part though, not the
Yeah.
meditation, not the they're talking about the practice
Just
part,
the postures,
just the
right? That's all
postures.
they're talking about, which
Right.
is like 1 out of 8 limbs.
Mm.
And, like, so there's 8 branches, and
Mhm.
within those branches, there are also multiple branches. And
Mm.
they've chosen this one tiny aspect,
Mm.
which, for example, my program barely covers.
Yeah.
Because the essence of what we're learning is the roots of yoga, which is really based in like social justice, which is really based in consciousness, which is really based in being curious, asking questions, expanding, healing,
Mhm.
growing. It's not about physical fitness at,
Right.
at all, and it never has been.
But
And so this is why it's also dumb because you've got a ton of people, millions of people doing what is called asana, which
yeah.
is what we call yoga. So
Mhm.
doing all these yoga asana positions and like using it basically as a workout without realizing asana is actually something that opens you up to meditation. So, for example, people who are like, oh, I don't meditate, I just practice mindfulness. What?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's a and so there's already that, which is like, babes, they're the same thing.
Right.
They come from the same lineage as well.
Yeah,
Um, but what we're doing is we're separating this exercise and the spirituality, and meditation is spiritual.
yeah.
That's what people are like experiencing, right? And that's why they're like, I don't need meditation, like I don't need all that, I just need mindfulness. But again, mindfulness is yoga, and even meditation comes in a sequence of like 3 different branches. There's being still, there's
Mhm,
going inward, and
mhm.
then there's really like transcendence,
Right. Yeah,
right?
my dad used to talk to me about that. And, like, transcendence, like, because my dad used to practice so much so when he was younger, he would say, like and you can have out of body experiences once
Mm,
you've done this, and like, we're talking 20-year-old pops in the Caribbean, playing music, meditating,
mhm,
yoga, a little bit of the chronic every here and there.
mhm.
These are the stories I've been told.
High vibes.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And just this also he was vegetarian at the time, like, he was really going in on it,
Yeah.
and he talks about that stuff, like and this is all the stuff he tried to teach me as a kid. As a six-year-old, obviously, I didn't understand it because I was just kinda like, "I'm a warrior now," and just, like, standing and, like,
Right.
doing my poses and thought it was fun, but it also, I remember doing it every morning with him and then eventually getting better at it and kind of feeling that confidence with it, and then him doing the meditation and me sitting next to him pretending to do my meditation, but then eventually actually getting a sense of like grounding, not a sense of being
Right.
tired, but a sense of being focused in myself.
Yep.
And this is when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So it was kind of
And meditation can be that simple, but
yeah.
also meditation doesn't only mean stillness.
Right.
Because we can go inwards when we're dancing. We can go
Mhm.
inwards when we're praying. Like there's so many different ways to
Yeah.
meditate as well, and it can be in movement.
Yeah.
And so asana is like sort of a a gateway to meditation. It
Right.
opens
Yeah.
you up. It opens all the channels up. When you're in warrior pose, you're calling in a certain energy that you can then sit with. So, maybe your dad's meditation was deeper because, well, he was also an adult attention
Mhm.
span, but maybe because like he was finding his rhythm in these positions, and you get these jolts of energy that allow you to sit deeper, that allow
Mm.
you to be more silent, that allow you to be more still. So it's just interesting, people being like, "Oh yeah, yoga doesn't work for me." It's just that you don't even know what it is. And
Right.
it's okay if yoga doesn't work for you. It doesn't need to work for everyone.
Yeah.
But what kills me is people will criticize it, um, you know, and also just be extreme about it, like these Christian yogas. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, um, but you're criticizing, or you're just like commenting on something that you actually have no idea about. And
Mhm.
even in the Western world, the only thing we really know is Indian yoga.
Yeah.
But there's also Kemetic yoga. There's also yoga from Africa,
Oh,
and to understand how those lineages come together, and to understand what we share from there and what we borrow together, which is something that we don't get to unpack at all, because right now all we're trying to do is be like, "Whoa, this is not yoga."
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
let's come back to the roots, which is so hard to come back to the roots, I find personally, because what we're really exploiting here is Indian yoga, but there's deep roots in African yoga.
right.
Um, and it's so hard to expand into that when you're constantly just in
Yeah,
like
because 'cause you're just
opposition with
y
white yoga.
yeah,
Which is
yes,
not
yeah, I was
yoga.
just gonna say, you're trying to teach them, like, "Hey, what you're learning is, first of all, is this Western idea of yoga."
Mhm.
So let's start with that. Then it's explaining to them that which is based off of this Eastern idea of yoga,
Yeah,
which also works in tandem with these diaspora and African ideas of yoga,
yeah.
and like try and but you have these people who are just like, yeah, but I'm doing it with my goat. I keep going back to the goats only because it to me it just seemed, and no, I'm not hating on anyone who's doing the goat yoga. If you guys are having fun doing that stuff, if you're
I
having
am
fun,
hating on them.
yeah,
Please
okay,
stop.
okay. You know what? Yeah,
Please
let's
stop.
get into a little. Why do y'all have these dirty ass goats standing on your backs? Let's take a
Just
moment to
stop.
realize, like, and the reason I say that is I'm sure the person who thought it up thought it was a great idea, but let's not pretend like what they were doing, that's a gimmick. That's like
Exactly.
because they saw yoga and they're just like, "Oh, everyone's doing this version. I got to come up with something new so that I can make a profit off of this teaching that I want to apply." And that's the reason that when I look at these things, I'm like, hey, again, if people want to do it, if you want to
Yeah,
do goat
do
yoga,
it. Right.
go ahead.
Yeah,
If
but
it,
to
if it
profit off of it, to sell it as like this holistic
right,
like experience, stop.
right,
Even here in Montreal, we've got like weed and yoga.
right,
And I openly criticized it, and I was
yeah,
just like, "Listen, go and smoke your weed,
right,
and
right,
then get into your yoga practice.
right,
Beautiful experience, great. Have it if you like that, but to sell it as an experience, it's
right,
not your business. First of all, it's like 2 white women. It's not your business, it's not your
yeah,
place. If anyone should profit off of it, it should be like me or people that look like me,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, but they're, like, teaching how these 2 come together and create a chemistry, and it's like,
Can we talk about
we
all?
we actually like, weed also comes from India.
Yeah,
Ganja, that's how we call it. That's
yeah.
what it is. That's like, and it comes from this Eastern practice, and it's used very sacredly, not at all the way we use it. So even to think that
Mm,
you can talk about these 2 elements coming together, you can't, because 'cause you're already misusing the way we use cannabis.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
There's a
it's
lot
all
th
just pretty, like, again, the audacity, I just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
entitlement,
Yes, yes.
it's so crazy to me.
Yeah, the entitlement is the thing that when you really look, and one of the themes, I think you had you and I discussed it a little bit. You had a chance to listen to some of the previous Dumbest Timeline episodes,
Mhm.
but one of the themes that we're noticing, we live in the dumbest timeline mostly because of greed. Greed is like a reoccurring theme throughout a lot of the reasons that we have the dumbest timeline or live in the dumbest timeline. And when you look at things like you're describing, in a world where so many people of color are incarcerated for weed possession, and then they legalize it, and two white women can be like, "Hey, I do yoga. Weed is legal now. Let's join those things together and have a party." And it's just a thing they can do openly, freely, promote it, get people to come to it. Meanwhile, you had people or still have people incarcerated for small weed possessions, and you're just like, and a lot mostly people of color, and you're just like, so the people who are benefiting from the culture are don't look like the people who are punished for trying to enjoy their own culture.
Right,
They, like
right.
some because
Yeah,
like I'm saying, some of the people there are there for possession, not because they were trying to sell large amounts. They had some on them, got
mhm,
in trouble, might have been told, "Oh, you
yep,
have one or two strikes, whatever the reason for having it was there. Some people needed it for medical reasons. Some people couldn't get help and were using it to help themselves for
mhm,
whatever reason. And instead of that being allowed, they instead got incarcerated and lost their rights and, disconnected from their families and stuff like that.
mhm,
And then you have these people who are doing weed and yoga, and we're supposed to stand back and go, "You go, buddy." It's
right?
insulting. It's insulting. It
It
really is.
it's insulting, and then just to add another layer of, like, dumb to me is, like, a lot of the times, the people doing the promotion or the people, hyping up the event are people of color,
Yeah, yes. Which
right?
goes have you heard the conversation about inviting people to the cookout? Like how everyone always says like, "Oh, Leonardo, let's say Leonardo DiCaprio stands up for black women." Oh, sorry,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
even better example. It came out that Paul McCartney and the Beatles wrote the song Blackbird about like black women in the United States, and that's what the song is supposedly about. And at one
Okay.
point, I heard people being like, "Paul McCartney's forever invited to the cookout because he wrote Blackbird." And then other people were just like, "You can't just invite these white dudes because they wrote one song. What else did they do? Oh, they were friends with Aretha. Cool. What else did they do? There's a lot more to be invited to, quote unquote, the cookout." And that's what it feels like sometimes. Like
Yeah,
these situations.
definitely. Especially in the wellness world,
Mm,
coming from a place where what I value most is knowing the roots of things.
mm,
So I value that the most for my clients as well. If my clients come in and they share their spiritual practice, I'm always going to encourage them to look at the roots of what they're practicing. But I'm
mhm,
also going to encourage them to look at the roots of themselves, to understand where their anxiety or where the tension is coming from. We're always going to go inwards.
mhm, mhm.
And I find it really interesting that, you know, as people of color, it's easier, right, to just cooperate.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
Um, and for some reason, I just don't function that way. I
Yeah.
just don't know how to cooperate.
That's
But I
that's
find myself constantly needing to justify or constantly needing to convince other people of color why they should not be cooperating, why
yeah.
they should also be disruptors. And then you're just disturbing, right? You're just like
Yeah.
shaking people up. Like I remember at some point, there's this whole notion in the wellness world, love and light and everything is positive.
Yeah.
And this Black woman said to me, I don't see color. And I was like, girl, what do you mean?
A
I was like,
black woman said that?
yeah. I was like, hold up.
Oh.
Like, let's just talk heart to heart. Like, I
Yeah, yeah.
understand we want to like connect and create a workshop together.
Right.
And it's because I was like, I really love doing like BIPOC only events.
Right.
And she was just like, "I don't see color." And then we had a little laugh about it. Like
Okay.
it was just like, "Oh, yeah, that was kind of weird for me to say."
Yeah.
But like, I also do feel like, she was telling me you're kind of caught up in your ego about racism right now. And I was just like, if that's what it is, then let it be that. Because
Yeah.
I have an ego, it exists. I'm not going to deny it existence because I'll
Right.
just be repressing my emotions, which is weird because, again, in the wellness world, it's like let go, surrender. But letting go and surrendering is dark and painful and heavy. And you
Yeah.
might be surrendering to shame. You might be surrendering to guilt for having cooperated in this bullshit your whole
Yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah. It's funny that you say that because my mom often reminds me that Oprah is the epitome of the whole, we need to move on. We need to let go. Like when Oprah was like at the peak Oprah-ness,
Yeah.
one of the reasons that she had so much quote unquote crossover appeal is as my mom would
Mm.
say, she gave people the sense that like she would forgive people for their ancestors' mistakes and keep telling everyone, "Yeah, let's move on. We can get past these things." And I remember thinking at the time, like, "Oh, I don't think Oprah's that bad." And then now looking back on some of the stuff that she's full on had segments where she invites people from the KKK and all these people to have a platform so they can talk about why they're haters and then at the end of it it's just like, okay, we've heard what they have to say, we've said our piece, let's move on. It's like, no, these people still think that way.
Yeah,
They still live in their own communities, have children and teach their children those things, but you're telling us to move on, but you're not telling, like, you could tell them to move on but they're not going to.
right,
You're a black woman, they're not even
right.
listening to you to begin with. I'm shocked they were on your show, but they were
Yeah,
probably convinced, hey, she has enough white viewers. This is great for us anyways. And
right,
then
they'll get some clout.
right.
And
So
that's what white people are looking for from us, right? They're
yeah.
looking for clout. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
oh, I
Oh god, yeah.
collaborated with, a voodoo priestess. I collaborated with a yoga teacher." I
Yeah.
and then for some reason, they then feel entitled to, like, do their little workshops. "Well, I did one workshop with a voodoo priestess. Now I know everything about
Yeah.
voodoo. Come to my, like, sex magic class."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah.
What?
Yeah. American Horror Story did that. Angela Bassett played the witch, and she was just like, "Listen, this little witch stuff that you do, you learned from us." This
Mhm.
whole that whole season, I remember watching up like, I didn't watch the whole season, so to anyone out there, I don't remember how I don't know how it ends. I just know specifically watching till that scene because that's why I found the most interesting when Bassett was telling them, like, "Listen, everything you're doing, this whole culture that you have, it's from us. You
Mhm.
got it from us. Don't forget that.
Yeah,
What you think you know, we know better. We didn't even teach you everything we know."
right.
Um,
That's the
so
thing, we didn't even teach you.
you're
Like,
right.
you just stole it. You just came and saw and was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do that." But don't you even want to be taught? Don't you want to know, like, the
Right.
depth of things? Um,
It's crazy. It's
just like
crazy.
this idea also that, like, we taught you, right?
Mhm.
Or you got it from us. Something I find really interesting about that is we're also, like, dismissing the fact that white people come with their own culture, actually.
Right, right.
And it's, like, important for them as well to go into their roots.
Mhm.
Um, for example, like, all these Gaelic practices,
Yeah.
there's some deep witchy magic.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Go
yeah.
and explore your own shit,
Yeah, yeah. It's
you
true.
know? Like, just why does it need to be this strange variation of someone else's work that you wanna capitalize off of?
Yeah.
Um,
Super interesting. Oh my god.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Western interactions of uh, their understanding of Eastern culture and appropriating other cultures is a forever uphill battle that we are going to constantly be fighting against. And you're right. That is an example of the dumbest timeline, folks. I mean, Kelsey, thank you. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
exactly, so and just so that we're clear, because I know there's some people who will hear this and go like, but that's not me. We're not talking. If you are the type of person who's listening to this conversation and you know that you actually do want to know the roots of things, you know that you're someone that looks into yourself and wants to learn about yourself and as they always say, heal within yourself while you learn other things.
Mhm.
That's okay, and you can do that. But there are other people out there that might be in your same community who are trying to take from all these different pieces and just monetize them as quickly as possible. And that's, if you want to be a good ally to us, maybe look into how they're doing it, why they're doing it that way, and maybe those teachings aren't the best path for you. There might be other people, often people of color, who have an understanding of a lot of the things that you might find interesting, that they're more than happy to work with you and teach you. And yes, you can pay them a fair amount of money for the service that they're giving to you. And it's not just something that like you're not doing us favors. You're doing the work, and that's an important part of it. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you just added there. Like, this is not to say don't practice yoga.
Right. Yeah, because I feel like some people are gonna listen to this and be like, "Oh my god, does that mean I'm not supposed to practice yoga?" And it's like, "No, no, that's not what we're saying. We're not."
Just
If
do a better job.
right, and learn about it. That's the other thing. Like, it's one thing to go into those classes and do the poses and then have your sweat, or do hot yoga and have your sweat and then leave and then go about your day and be like, you know, just let your hair fall. Yeah, and you just go have a smoothie and talk to your friends and giggle, and it's just like there's a lot that you could have done before and after, because that experience that you're doing, like you were saying, those poses open you up. And then
Mhm.
when you open up and then just stop and then go out and just start drinking smoothies and doing whatever else,
Yeah,
there's like a process to that. Like, I
yeah.
remember like that last thing was always and anyways, it could go on for hours if I
Yes,
try, so I won't. But thank you, Kelsey. Honestly, this was such
of
a great conversation.
course. Thank you for allowing me to be here and talk about shit that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Where can people check out some of your great stuff? I mentioned Higher Veda at the beginning. Please.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty much the platform right now. Higher.veda
Mhm.
on Instagram. Link in bio has my website, all my services, products.
Awesome. And the classes that because you do also still offer. Yeah, awesome.
Mhm.
Everything's
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Okay.
everything's there.
Folks, go check it out. Thank you very much, Chelsea. I very much appreciate you coming through today. This was a
Thank
great conversation.
you.
And I just want to remind everybody once again, we don't live in the darkest timeline. We just happen to live in the dumbest one. And working together, we can make it slightly better, one conversation at a time. So we'll be back with another one, folks. Peace, everybody.